obviously autism requires some form of diagnosis, and I was wondering, and this is only because I know that females being diagnosed with autism tends to come later on in life. It's not necessarily something you're diagnosed with as a child, because in everyone's brain, which is wrong, that the idea of autism is a naughty white boy in the class who's like throwing bricks at you. Like that is like the very stereotypical, oh, he's autistic model that everyone, if you don't necessarily fit into that mold, it's like, oh, you can't really have autism then. And I was wondering, because of, you know, you're a female, where was your diagnosis? Where was that process for you? How did it all happen for you?
Yeah, so I'm a classic late diagnosed female. We're just going to get a little dog's head in the corner there if she turns herself around.
We love that. Welcome.
She's like, I will make my appearance in this podcast, whether you want me to or not. So my diagnosis didn't come until I was 23, and it happened just before the pandemic. So I actually had like a couple of years to come to terms with it, where life was very autistic friendly, and I think you'll find that's what a lot of autistic people, especially in the UK, will say, thinking about, obviously we have to recognize that the pandemic was a really, really challenging time for many people, but for those of us who need a lot of downtime, who need a lot of time away from people, who need very fixed routines, like not being able to leave your house except to do certain things is like the most exact routine you can possibly get. So that was a really, really transformative time for me in a very positive way, because I was able to learn more about myself, and how to look after myself, etc. But going back to your question, I first came across the notion that I might be autistic in Women's Health magazine. So
wow,
it's quite cool, isn't it? It's quite a cool origin story. But I was reading Women's Health magazine, and there was an article in there, a feature that had been written by a late diagnosed autistic woman who, throughout her kind of teenage and young adult years, had been told that she was just anxious, that she was just depressed, they were on medication, and it wasn't until much later on that she discovered that the kind of traits that they had diagnosed that for were actually autistic traits, specifically how it presents in females. I was reading this article and I was just like, that's me, tick. And what was really challenging about that revelation is my mum worked in a special needs school all of my childhood with autistic kids. So we've had conversations about it, and we've been like, why do we think that she never kind of recognized that in me? She was surrounded with it all day. And that was the conclusion that I personally have kind of come to, is that when you are surrounded by it all day, it's normal. And if you come home to it as well, it's normal. And so you don't necessarily think, I shouldn't be coming home to that.